Welcome to In Focus, Texas. I'm your host, Carla Leal. Our national parks have endless opportunities for education, recreation, and cultural preservation. With some of the most stunning landscapes, Texas is home to more than a dozen national parks and protected areas for present and future generations to enjoy. On this National Park Week, we are celebrating the great outdoors by taking a closer look at the ones here in the Lone Star State. According to the National Park Service, just in 2020, close to 6 million visitors explored our state's national parks, generating close to $500,000 in revenue to those sites and the Texas communities nearby. El Paso's Kastner Range is the newest national monument in the state of Texas. The historic presidential designation took place this 2023, and as our Luis Garcia shows us, it came after decades of advocacy from El Pasoans like Judy Ackerman, who made it her mission to educate Texans on the history and importance of this site.
Judy Ackerman often walks the trails of the Kastner Range, a place she fell in love with when she arrived in El Paso.
It was in 1995 when the Army said, "Ackerman, you're going to Fort Bliss." And I said, "Oh, no, that's the desert. I don't think I'm going to like that." I got here and I saw these mountains. That was enough. I'm still here.
Since her arrival, she has devoted much of her time to protecting the Kastner Range.
Kastner Range is 11 square miles, and it's owned by the Army. It was a former firing range where soldiers trained here. Now it is no longer used like that. So for 50 years, the people of El Paso have been trying to protect this land as natural open space.
One of the main reasons for Judy to protect this area are the Mexican poppies, because it's the only place in Texas where they bloom.
When you see them in full bloom, it'll blow your mind, but it only happens when the weather is just right. So maybe every 5 to 10 years, the entire mountain range is covered with golden poppies. Halfway to the top, the whole mountain glows.
While Judy Ackerman passed away in late 2022, her work with others dedicated to preserve Kastner Range finally came to fruition March 21st of 2023 when President Biden officially declared it a national monument. Here's how the president described Kastner Range that day.
Because when you see it, it's just breathtaking. Transforming desert plains and hills into a sea of vibrant yellow and oranges, framed into the rugged mountains of the blue sky. The people of El Paso have fought to protect this for 50 years. Their work has finally paid off.
Kastner Range National Monument now includes just over 6,600 acres of the Franklin Mountains in El Paso. This federal designation will protect the cultural, scientific, and historic objects found within the monument's boundaries. El Pasoans are thrilled now that the preservation of Kastner Range National Monument is secured for generations to come. I spoke to El Paso County Judge Ricardo Samaniego about what comes after this designation and what other natural jewels does El Paso offer to Texans. Judge Ricardo Samaniego, welcome. We want to learn more about the recent national monument designation of Kastner Range by President Joe Biden. What makes Kastner Range so special for El Pasoans, and how will this monument designation help preserve this site?
Well, first of all, having to see it from a distance all the time, and when all the Mexican poppies come out and the flowers come out in the spring, and it's a beautiful place, but it was something that was not ours kind of thing. And so I'm really excited. But one of the things that it is by itself, it's amazing, right? But I think for El Paso, I think we're coming of age. We were sort of isolated. Everything sort of happened in San Antonio, Austin, Dallas, Fort Worth area. And I think this is one additional, opportunity for people to know us. I have this motto that is to to know us is to love us. Because a lot of people don't know about El Paso, but the minute they find out about El Paso, they get really excited.
Tell me first, who will manage the Kastner Range National Monument, and what needs to happen there to make sure that area is secure and accessible to the public?
Well, it's the first time Fort Bliss will actually manage it, which is the first time that the military actually manages a monument. And so this is pretty exciting. And because it is the military, they're going to be able to be more efficient and more effective, because there's things that can explode, as they say there. And so that needs to be cleared up and be safe. And what better, right, that the military. There are these pillars that making El Paso a great place to come, great desert area where you can enjoy both the desert and the mountains and the ranges.
Judge Samaniego, when President Biden announced that Kastner Range Monument designation, he shared how Paseños have fought to preserve it for decades. Why did it take so long, and what are some of the obstacles that Kastner Range advocates faced?
The safety concerns, I think, were probably, would there be, how much intensity has to go into it to make sure that it's safe for the community? But now we're there, and it had to be designated as such to be able to take the next step. So I think it's going to be something very beautiful for our community.
So the Guadalupe Mountains National Park is also near El Paso, and it's known as one of America's best kept secrets. Tell us, what are some of its attractions, and what type of activities can Texas visiting it enjoy?
One of the things that we saw when we were working with tourism is that you need to connect certain things together. So if I want to come to Hueco Tanks, why not come to Kastner Range? Why not go to the Guadalupe Mountains? Why not? And connect it, even going international. There's some beautiful places also across in Mexico. And so people can sort of visit, sort of like a cruise where you can get off in different places. You can come through this, all this area's got a beautiful range. You've got Las Cruces also with the Organ Mountains. And so I think it's a great connectivity of people being able to hike and go outdoors and enjoy the outdoors and feel healthy.
So what can Texans do to help preserve those sites for future generations?
Well, I think the appreciation for it, I think there's a lot of ways to donate. I think there's a lot of ways to support it. We have a great opportunity, and sometimes it's hard. For example, we have the oldest missions in the country. Almost 100 years older than any other place. And people come through here and go to, San Diego, or they go to San Jose, or they go to San Antonio. And we have 3 beautiful missions. And so I think what happens is it's not just having missions, but having other activities.
Judge Samaniego, thank you.
Next, from missions to monuments, we'll hear how one organization is working to preserve our national parks across the Lone Star State. Keep it here. Welcome back. An inspiring story out of San Antonio. A 2-year-old girl, appropriately named Journey, is on a mission to visit all the U.S. national parks. It's a journey she's been on since she was a newborn. Our Michael Lozano got the chance to speak with her family as they were on their way home from their latest trip.
For the Casillo family, it was a very ambitious goal. That's getting their 2-year-old daughter to every single national park. So far, she's already been to 50 of them, with just 13 to go.
It's been quite the journey for Journey Casillo in her just 2 years of life.
We did grow up outside and in nature, and that's what we wanted to kind of carry into with Journey. 3 adults and a child for a self-guided tour. San Antonio, Texas.
Her parents, Eric and Valerie, instilling a love for the outdoors the moment she was born.
And Journey being able to be around that.
Journey was just days old when she went to Pikes Peak and Rocky Mountain National Park. Since then, she's quickly added 50 national parks to her belt, most recently the U.S. Virgin Islands and Theodore Roosevelt National Park.
And as she gets older, we can revisit them and and then, continue to visit more of the 424 sites.
But it hasn't been easy. The San Antonio couples pulled out of their life savings and rely on remote jobs to make this happen.
Everything we make in the business goes straight into our goal.
Where's your go?
On the way back home, they made a stop at the Waco Mammoth National Monument,
Go look at elephants?
which is 13 U.S. national parks left. They hope Journey's story will be an inspiration to others to get outside, preserve nature, and every so often disconnect from technology.
Our kids to grow up and become arborists, conservationists, advocates. We need our kids to appreciate nature.
All of their sacrifice worth it to have Journey see what nature has to offer.
One of the organizations that's working to preserve our parks for years to come is the National Parks Conservation Association. Carrie Dupuy is their regional director for the Texas and Oklahoma area, and she joins me in our studios. Carrie, welcome to In Focus Texas.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Well, how is the NPCA working to preserve our culture and history through our national parks?
Sure. We work all across the country on behalf of our national parks. The National Parks Conservation Association was actually created by the first director of the National Park Service. He recognized that our parks were created by the people and that we still needed people to speak up for them to make sure that they have the funding and the resources, that the staff have what they need to protect these incredible, iconic, and inspirational places.
And how many parks does the NPCA have here in Texas?
So there are 16 park sites in Texas. A lot of people just are familiar with Big Bend and Guadalupe Mountains as our big national parks, but we have so many other national park sites across the country that are as diverse as Texas itself.
Why should Texans visit our national parks, and what can they do to preserve them for future generations?
Sure. There are so many incredible things in our national parks that people can do. They have national parks in their backyard that can be part of their daily lives. In San Antonio, we have the San Antonio Missions National Historic Park, where people can jog and hike and just enjoy that open space in the middle of the 7th largest city in the whole entire country. But they can also go out and have epic adventures, like hike Guadalupe Peak, the tallest mountain in Texas at Guadalupe Mountains. It's also a place where people can learn about the history and heritage of the United States as well. People can take their family to learn about the stories of Texas, like at our newest national park site, the Blackwell School National Historic Site in Marfa.
Wow. Well, Carrie, tell us about a national park that's among the most popular ones. You already mentioned some of them, but also tell us about one that not all Texans might know of, but it's a hidden gem.
The one park that everybody knows of in Texas is Big Bend National Park. One of the incredible things about that park is how big it is. Texas is a private land state. We have 95% of our land in private land, but that 5% of land is so huge. When you look at Big Bend, it's 801,000 acres. That is bigger than the state of Rhode Island. So it's an incredible place along the Rio Grande to go out and just visit and explore the wide open skies, not just during the day, but also some of the darkest skies at night that people can explore. So that's definitely a bucket list item for people to drive all the way out to West Texas and see and explore that park. I will also say a hidden gem that's one of my favorite parks is the Big Thicket National Preserve. It's about 80 miles east of Houston. It's a place that you can go backcountry camping. There are no developed campsites whatsoever at the Big Thicket, so you just go out there and kind of put your tent out in the middle of the woods, and then you can go paddle along the Neches River and the various creeks that go into the Neches River. It's just really an incredible place to go visit and explore. It actually has some of the most diverse plants and animals in the whole entire world. There are 4 carnivorous plants that are found at the Big Thicket, including some you can't find anywhere else. So I highly recommend people going out to explore that park.
So how do some of the national parks in Texas change with the weather conditions, with the weather seasons? Are there any periods of the year that you recommend visiting them versus others?
Every part of the year is going to have a unique experience in our national park sites. Some of them are definitely busier than others. The prime time, I would say, to visit our national parks like Big Bend and Guadalupe Mountains and other parks are fall and spring. Spring break is probably one of the busiest times for our parks to go visit. You know, in the summer, just like everywhere else in Texas, our national park sites get really hot. So if you're going out to visit national parks in the summer, you can still go do it. You might have less people, but make sure and bring plenty of water with you as well. Right now, though, is an incredibly wonderful time to get out to the parks. With National Parks Weeks, there's going to be so many different activities at each of the parks that you can do for all ages as well.
Well, Carrie, thank you so much for stopping by.
Sure, thank you so much for having me. And y'all go out and visit the parks.
We'll make a trip.
Perfect, thank you.
The most popular national park in the Lone Star State, Big Bend, is known for its diversity of plants and wildlife. Coming up, we'll hear from those working to preserve the West Texas Park. We're back. Big Bend National Park is the most well-known national park in Texas. Its natural attractions are among the most fascinating for visitors from all over. Our final guest, Lauren Reamer, Executive Director of Big Bend Conservancy, joins me in our studios. Welcome, Lauren.
Thanks so much for having me.
Well, Big Bend is also known as Texas's gift to the nation. How important is this national park to the state of Texas, and what does it have to offer to those visiting?
Oh, well, it's so important. You know, the majority of Texas is privately owned, over 95%. So conserving and preserving those areas of Texas that are open for public access are so important. And of that 5% that's available for public access, Big Bend National Park actually makes up 20% of that area, encompassing over 800,000 acres. So there's something to explore for everyone.
So how many people visit Big Bend National Park annually? And is it true that it's one of the least visited parks in the nation?
So in the nation, yes. However, visitation has skyrocketed. So in a park that was originally intended to host about 90,000 individuals a year, we're seeing close to 600,000 folks visiting annually. So it is starting to stretch some of the resources of the park, but we're really excited that Big Bend has been discovered.
And what does Big Bend Conservancy do to help highlight and protect this West Texas jewel?
Yeah, so the Big Bend Conservancy acts as the philanthropic partner on behalf of Big Bend National Park, which means we have the opportunity to raise funds on behalf of the national park. For us, that takes on all sorts of different arenas, whether land conservation, wildlife protection, historic renovation, or visitor education. And we are really excited that we get to partner with the park on projects that are important to them that are outside of their federal budget.
So what are some of the projects that Big Bend Conservancy has right now?
One specifically is a land acquisition project on the western boundary of the park, where we're actually recommending a 6,000 acre boundary adjustment that will expand the footprint of Big Bend National Park. We've been working very closely with Congressman Gonzalez and Senator Cornyn, who have actually introduced legislation on the federal level to help us move that legislation forward. So we're very grateful for that.
That sounds really exciting. What type of sustainability efforts are happening at Big Bend, and what impact do they have for the state of Texas?
Absolutely. So that increasing visitation rate comes at an impact to the park as well. When folks visit, they bring their trash along with them. And Big Bend National Park is one of 2 national parks that actually has an active landfill on site in the park. And that landfill is filling up much too quickly. So we're doing everything we can to educate visitors about how they can offset their footprint in the park through increased recycling measures, through being very cautious about what they actually bring in and leave at the park, and also understanding how they can be very conscientious park users.
Lauren, thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
While national parks across the U.S. are protected by the federal government, some of our state parks, like Fairfield Lake in North Texas, are facing major challenges to stay open to the public. Our Michael Lozano explains.
The property status of state parks in the Lone Star State is now a topic on many Texans' minds.
That someone could take it from us. It's too important.
I absolutely hate it.
That's because the state could end up losing the Fairfield Lake State Park due to their lease running out. So it begs the question.
We get to live rural but have all the benefits of the city right just down the road.
Are other state parks at risk of this same problem? The short answer is no.
For those 15, we really feel are low risk at losing those parks.
Texas Parks and Wildlife Department Executive Director David Yoskowitz says of the 89 state parks, 17 of them are under full lease. 15 of those are owned by public entities like city or county governments, meaning they're low risk. The two owned by private firms are Fairfield Lake and Lake Colorado City State Park.
We want to make sure that we can work with the private sector entity to make sure that state park's going to stay around.
Robbie Merritt is the superintendent of Ray Roberts Lake State Park. It's just an hour north of Dallas and is owned by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. They're also the owners of Cedar Hill State Park, just south of Dallas.
Every one of those government entities has to report back to their constituents, and constituents are very vocal about wanting parks.
In the Fairfield Lake situation, the state says they lacked the funds at the time to place a bid on the property.
We didn't have the money to buy all 5,000 acres of the property.
With Texas Parks and Wildlife now able to utilize funds from the sporting goods sales tax, Yoskowitz says their approach will look different in the future.
Really, we think going forward, we imagine being out of the leasing business more and more and being in the sole ownership business.
Meaning it'll help preserve the public land for all Texans to enjoy.
That'll do it for this week's In Focus Texas. I'm Carla Leal. Thanks for joining us to explore and learn more about our state's great outdoors, highlighting National Park Week. Take care, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel, and for more refreshing stories about your community, click the subscribe button right over here. You can also download our Spectrum News app to get live news coverage, weather alerts, and more wherever you are. And don't forget to tune in to Channel 55 on Dish and DirecTV for live local reporting every single day. We'll see you then.